Hello, I'm Tokat and welcome back to the second channel video. Today I'm here on the London Underground because I wanted to talk about metro systems and specifically the Underground because as you know, if you know this channel and if you know me, I think metro systems are a really cool way to get around cities, you know, build the trains under the ground. It's a clever thing, but a lot of people think the London Underground is just one big unified system, and the branding would have you believe that, and it's something that seems just about true on the surface, but the truth is every single underground line is an entirely different width, every single underground line is built at a different height, every single underground line has a different history to it, and because of that I figured today's video would be a fun way to guide you around different parts of the underground. What's the deal with it all being so different? Let's explain in today's video. So we're starting right now. If you look around at the signs, you'll see that we're in King's Cross St Pancras Underground Station. This is actually the busiest station on the network by far, and also the one where the most tube lines pass through. We're in the station right now, and we talk about a few things that you might have noticed and might find interesting, such as the fact that whenever there's three sets of escalators, and there always is three sets of escalators, it's always two going up and one going down. Why is that the case when there's the same number of people getting on and off? Well, as you're about to see flying around me, we time this for a train coming in, the way capacity works on the tube is people come in at a very steady rate, but people get off in a big burst all at once. So right now, a train has just arrived from, I assume, Heathrow Airport based on all the bags. A train has just arrived all the way from the other side of London, and hundreds of people are getting off to go to their homes, and that's why so much up capacity is needed, and then there's a big gap, and then there's more up capacity. It's the same number of people going in both directions, but because it comes in a very concentrated form and there's a big gap between when it's needed, this is why two up, one down actually makes some sense. You might think that they're just favouring people leaving rather than coming in, but there's science, trust me. Another interesting fact about the London Underground is a relic of its long history. It's the oldest underground system in the entire world, and as a part of that, every single line on the Underground tries to pretend like it's one cohesive system, but that is something they've only, done in the fairly recent 100-ish year of the history of it. For most of its history, they're entirely separate lines, and they were built using different technologies. At one point, there were literally steam trains in tunnels, and as a result of that, depending on which line you go on, you get an entirely different experience. The reasoning isn't because of design or anything like that, it's because of the technology at the time. So the very earliest underground lines, like the Metropolitan Railway, the District, and the Circle, these were built using cut and cover. I mean, they literally just destroyed the street, they cut it all up, they dug it up, then they built an underground train, and then they put the street back. This was the most basic method, this was how the very first tunnels were built, but the later underground lines, like the one we're in right now, the Northern Line, are built deep below the surface. Because they were built below the surface and they used a new form of excavation technique, these first excavation machines were in a giant circle shape, which was deemed the best way to build a tunnel under London. This is why the circular shape of the underground, or the tube, is coming to be a thing. And this station, by the way, big circle, but you'll see if you look at the actual train tunnel itself, it itself is also a circle, which is why when you look at the trains, the tube, it has that very distinctive tube shape to it. So while we're here in Angel Station anyway, the name of the station in case you're curious, well, Angel and Islington, you might notice we're in a giant underground station. If you've been on the underground, you probably haven't been on a platform this big. The reason the platform is so big is because originally this used to be a platform with two trains on either side. I guess it's called like a suicide bay platform or something like that. But instead of having this single aisle, eventually they had to reroute the other underground train a little bit further, and that's why you still get this super long platform here and this super circular tube station. But Angel Station is also interesting because of the escalators. So this right here at Angel Station is actually the tallest escalator on the entire underground network. It's pretty big. It's so big that if you look at it from this angle longer, it starts to look like we're just slightly slanted and it's the tunnel just straight. But yeah, this is the tallest escalator in the EU. As of time of recording, as of time in the future, it's the tallest escalator that was formerly in the EU. That's a fun fact to do with the underground, right? And just in case you look at that and say, you know what, was that really such a tall escalator? I feel like it's much more impressive when you're from the top looking down. This is how long the escalator is. It's big. Next up we have Old Street. Old Street is a really interesting station because most people know it for being the home of Shoreditch, a trendy place for bars, clubs. Most people know it for being the home of a lot of tech companies, but at the same time as being both of these things, it's also the home of Waterloo, which is the biggest one in the capital, and I'm going to go out on a limb and say probably the country too. That's entirely under-researched. But with that said, you've got to bear in mind that to get to the eye hospital, how are you going to get there by public transport when you don't have good seeing eyes? So that's why something really clever they put in place is this green line. There's a very confusing subway system in place if you want to get around to different places. However, using this green line, you can actually walk all the way to the eye hospital. And I think it's one of the cutest details about the tube. They're like, oh yeah, there's an eye hospital. How are you going to get there? You follow the bright green line that is visible no matter how bad your eyesight. We're going to follow it now because I'm curious as to how far it goes. And it leads you to more fields. You only have to cross like 2 roads, but it was like side streets, not main paths. So yeah, pretty cool in my opinion that like they built into the design of the tube and the tube station how to get from there to a place of like eye vision. Yeah, eye help. Because again, one of the cool things about London is public transport is for everyone here. Not everyone has to use it, but it's built so that everyone can use it, with the exception of South London, but that's the point. Anyway, staff entrance only, main hospital entrance up. You've got to follow the line some more. Okay, Moorfields, Eye Hospital, but the real entrance where real people go in and not just staff, because staff are not real people, as we all know. Oh, the line actually gets like bright green for me. I guess we could probably follow it all the way in, but like, oh look, that's cute. I like that a lot. And yeah, I love the fact that things like this are built into the design of our entire system. Unlike a lot of cities, particularly North America, but many cities around the world focus on public transport as a transport for the masses, but you can make transport for everyone that doesn't need to be forced transit for everyone. And here's a good example of using it for blind people too. Well, not blind people, hard of sighted people. Although, fun fact, legally blind doesn't mean you can't see, it means that you can see below a certain level. They have a little colour coding, so if you need to go to a place that's like brightly coloured, because of course it's an eye hospital. Cute. Here's a useful fact that might just save your life, not clickbait. Fun fact, the Underground, unlike most trains, isn't powered by overhead cables, but it's instead powered by a 3rd or 4th rail, which means if you step on that, don't like see the rails, you can touch those just fine, unlike movies will lead you to believe, but don't touch that middle bar in between, because you might just die. Or maybe you get superpowers, it's one of the two, but you know, if you can avoid it, avoid superpowers, because then you'd be too great for society, and or you die and, you know, you become a vegetable. So anyway, make a little Another fun fact about London is it has the shortest metro by number of stations in the world, at just 2. And if I show you the signage, just in case you get a bit lost here, we're at Bank Station and we're going to Waterloo. We have to check a few times we're on the right platform. It's a very confusing journey here, like which way, you know, we go. It's a whole thing, but this is the shortest metro line by number of passengers, and it's also the least used of the London Underground lines, because again, just 2 stations, just one to the other, and it's got a whole history of how like it was, you know, parliamentarily set up to go be the first train under the river. There's a lot of travel. It's a fun history if you want to read into the Waterloo and City line. But the other fun fact about this one to me is the fact that it used to be owned directly by British Rail. Instead of being part of the London Underground system, it used to just be a railway that was operated by the National Rail Company that was kind of only devolved in 1994. So, fun fact. As a result of being such a short line where both ends are terminus stations, interestingly enough, that means that there's only just 2 bits of track between the 2 stations, meaning to get trains on and off this line, they actually have to use like this wench that they have set up above the ground. It's a first of its kind. It lifts trains from the underground stations up above the ground where they can refurbish them and so on and so forth. It's quite interesting in my opinion. Also, this is an underground line that is shut on any day that is, you know, a weekend, any non-working day, because this is exclusively meant for the purposes of getting people to and from the south of the river, you know, like south of the city where people more often live, to the city where they might work. So, fun fact, if you ever watch a movie set on the underground, it's probably going to be filmed right here, because for 2 days a week it's shut off, partially so they can also allow people to film on the underground on a live, actual underground line. It's a fun fact in my opinion. Also, it didn't used to be known as part of the underground. It used to be, prior to 1994, run by British Rail directly, the national UK trains. So, yeah, London Underground line that's not really an underground line, that's the least used of the underground line, and also doesn't really connect to anything, it's just a dead end.
Is that the elevator? Over
I think that
like
is, yeah. It looks like there was a train in it, right? Like, I actually can't stay on this one. See where the train goes.
Oh yeah, there's one there.
It's not like an elevator, it's like literally a thing grabs the train and lifts it. Like
a claw machine.
Yeah, like a claw. Yeah, I just found that so interesting. It's like, I really want to believe they're going to lift it up right now. Another fun fact is that although people think that underground stations are far apart, they actually tend not to always be that way. Right now we're at Covent Garden, we're about to go to Leicester Square, and they look like they're the same distance as any other two stations, but they're actually the shortest distance, which means we leave the station now, and timer on screen. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10,
Next station
11,
is Leicester
12,
Square.
13, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31, 32, 33, 34. 36 seconds later, we're pulling right into Leicester Square, the next station. It's 40 seconds from when the train leaves that station to when it stops and opens its doors at this station, which makes it the shortest distance between two stations. Also, it means that if you ever are going to Covent Garden, pro tip, it's a nice area of London, but if you're ever going to Covent Garden, it's always recommended to come to Leicester Square instead, because this actually has escalators, it has much more access to actually get in and out of the station, so it's faster to come here and walk the 3 minutes above ground just from Leicester Square to Covent Garden, because they're literally next to each other, and a lot of the things in Covent Garden are actually in Leicester Square anyway. So, fun fact. Another interesting fact that just goes to show the sheer effort that was put into making the London Underground is right here at Sloane Square Station, because above you can see this weird little tunnel, you know, it's kind of a greenish little thing over on some houses. You might not think too much of it, but what that actually is that is a former river that was here where they wanted to locate the station. So what they did is they just put the river in a tunnel, so the river goes across there. It's buried underground, of course, but it's over the underground, which means there is a river tunnel right above here. If that thing breaks, you better believe we're all getting flooded and drowned. Isn't that cool? Drowning on the underground. That's not cool at all. Drowning is bad. I can't swim, it sucks. Anyway, next fun fact. So, as we all know, even though it's colloquially called the Tube, the official name is the London Underground. But did you know the London Underground, despite that being its official name, is actually mostly not underground? 55% of the network is actually above ground. Most stations, when you go to places like this, are actually heavily above the ground. You're going to see how it's, again, there's no something above us, but not subsurface. But yeah, between most of the stations, especially outside of Zone 1 and 2, which is where property values are the highest, and therefore it makes the most sense to go below the ground, outside of that, you're going to mostly see how the London Underground is overground. This is actually true for most metro networks around the world, though. It's not just a lie about the London Underground, and it's because, again, trains make sense above ground when you're in the middle of what used to be at one point a forest, but they make less sense below the ground here. Anyway, also fun fact, we're on the Metropolitan line right now, as you can tell by the purple signs, even though these poles are yellow, but we're on the Metropolitan line, and the Metropolitan line, in my opinion, is a really great example, like, just to have a little rant at the end of the video here, because, you know, I'm worth it. I can rant about what I like on my YouTube channel. The Metropolitan line is a really interesting example of a railway that was privately funded. Obviously, it's now part of the London Underground system, but the whole you know, railway was privately funded, like a lot of ones in Japan are, and certain countries can pull this model off, where basically instead of the government giving them money to run the service, they run the service, they put the big investment in, and in exchange for the service they provided, they got the land alongside, or they bought up the land, in fact, alongside where the stations would be. This meant that the profit-making money in the trains, because trains never turn a profit, you can increase the fares as much as you like, but you just make alternative transport more viable. Trains barely ever make money on the fares. This is almost worldwide a fact, with very few exceptions, but trains can make money on the service they're providing if you think about the other factors of it. I mean, some trains try to sell you snacks and do that to various levels of success. Some trains try to sell various tickets to make money there, but one of the biggest sources of revenue that new companies, especially for high-speed lines, don't really exploit is the idea of having the land be the biggest profit maker. When the Metropolitan Railway went all the way out to the Cheshams, the Amershams, the Chorley Woods, when it went out to there, they were pretty small villages in Buckinghamshire, but now they are on the tube map, they are part of London, and the property values skyrocketed, and they even sold them as like Met homes. This will be on screen because this is a fun video being edited by the person on the camera, but like they were actually like marketed as metro homes, like homes that were on the metro connected to London in that way. And this is something I feel like we miss in modern day train construction. We just see trains as a public service that are always going to have to be funded by the government over and over again, and you know, it's a thing worth doing, especially in this environment, this climate environment. Fun. But in this world, of course, it makes sense to do that, but also we're forgetting about what the train service is really providing. The reason that it provides more value than we think it's put in via fares is because of the connections that it makes, because of the people it allows to be connected to the cities, to the jobs, etc. And if you actually allow the train operators to maximize on that value themselves, you don't need to subsidize them ad infinitum. Anyway, we're going to get off here.
Find the gap between the train and the platform. This is Wembley Park.
Oh, this is also a Jubilee Line station. Let's hop on that. I mean, well, it says, okay, one fun fact, the London Underground actually lies to you a lot. Here it says no exit, and you think to yourself, I guess I can't exit. What it means is we don't want you to exit. That's not what I'm about to do. I think this is one example where actually the exit's over there. Oops. In case you need more proof that the underground is mostly above ground as opposed to underground, let me show you something that we just spotted on the way out from Baker Street. Up there is a literal bird's nest in the wiring. You don't find birds when you're underground, I'm just saying. That is adorable. But yeah, in conclusion, to cut myself off there, there is a lot of things to consider about the underground and about any metro network that makes you realise that even though the branding wants you to believe it's one cohesive network, under the surface it's not so much that way, but there's a lot you can learn from realising it that it is that way, and hopefully if you ever become a city planner or someone who makes that happen, then you can use this knowledge in some way. Although actually if you're a city planner, I hope you know more than in a 15-minute YouTube video by a guy who just roams around the underground and does silly things and talks on trains. But you know what, either way, I hope you enjoyed this video. You might have noticed at some point we changed clothing. That was definitely because it's the same day. It's not 6 months later. It's not literally winter compared to summer. No, same day. I just put on a hoodie and shaved my beard but only slightly, and also my hair grew. That's what happened here. That's canon. I hope you'll enjoy this video. Let me know if you want to see more videos about things, because I find public transport to be super interesting. A lot of people dislike it, especially if you live in the US. You might be like, well, why is it so interesting? It's just bad, right? But in most European countries, public transport is something that is very well invested in, and as a result is actually a better form of transport than the alternatives. And when it gets to that level, it's hugely fascinating because it makes sense for it to be that way. You can have trains going under the ground that are faster than cars, and you know that's actually a lot of the thing behind the Elon Musk tunnel project, right? Having trains below the ground to move people, or the people being in the same car, or maybe the cars are really long and are cool like trains, is a efficient system of moving people. And there's so many fascinating things about how they came to be, because it is a fairly new technology, and it's one of the very few forms of public transport that actually can be widely effective. Because on the underground, for instance, you see businessmen in suits using it. You see the same people like me using it, you know, while we talk about things on the underground. The fact that these two categories can mix is cool in my opinion, and that is why you should come to London and hop on the underground. Anyway, there's a train coming now. I've got to get on that. So, thank you for watching. Second channel. Don't care. Goodbye. Hello, I'm Toycat, and welcome back.
It is advisable to carry water with you.
It is advisable to carry water.
Search
Do
Waterloo
recommend.
London for nearby water fountains.
There's water
Please give
fountains.
up your seat to anyone who is unwell, and if they need more assistance, help them off at the next stop.
This is good advice. I love the looks. Like I've started to like deal with it now. Like that's just.
I guess it's better
Takes
if
time
you
in the go, you know.
two people. Yeah.
You know, two people. It's like this is a real thing. Okay, someone cares. And I'm here because I wanted to talk about metro systems. It's something I've said before, but are there announcements every minute here?
Please take care when using.
Who gets to the platform and then is like, actually, where is this one platform going? Which is why when you look at the trains, the tube, it has that very distinctive tube shape to it. Like, I get a time it's like 30 seconds better. And that is why if you look at the train itself, which goes through the tunnels, it has to be that distinctive circular shape as well, just like... I'll get this. And that's why the trains themselves have this distinctive tube shape, because they go through tunnels which themselves are distinctively shaped like tubes because of those circular excavation tubes needed. I feel like they really oversold this. And that is why the trains themselves have this very circular arrangement, because they have to go through circular tunnels. Like just like this. But yeah, the circles that they do some magic and make this tunnel. And then they put a floor over, like, it probably is like curved on the bottom and the top too. In fact, it definitely is curved at the top. Then there's another tunnel. And it's because this is the busiest station on the whole network, so it gets too crowded to, if you don't force people through tunnels, the platforms can get really crowded really fast, and then someone gets pushed on the platform, someone dies. Nah, better have tunnels instead. And there's a few stations where they do it, but they have it set up so you kind of walk in, like, imagine like a semicircle, and then when it's less crowded, they close off the semicircle and you just walk straight. So they actually can make it shorter again when it's not needed, which I think is cool.